There's a kind of pain no one really talks about. It's not loud or dramatic. It doesn't come with tears or shouting. It's quieter, slower. It's the ache of being misunderstood. You show up as yourself, at least you try to. But it feels like no one really sees you. Like you're speaking a language no one else understands. If you've ever felt completely alone in a room full of people, you're not broken. You're just human. And you're not the only one. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you might just realize that this very ache, the one you've carried silently for so long, could be the thing that unlocks your greatest strength. Let's get real for a second. There are wounds we carry that never bleed. Being misunderstood doesn't just sting in the moment. Sometimes it stays with you for years. You try to explain yourself, but your words come out twisted or flat. You laugh at things that don't feel funny just to fit in. You go along with what people expect, even though it doesn't match who you are. And inside, you're carrying this quiet truth. Nobody really sees the real you. Not fully. Maybe not even close. It might have started early. Maybe in your family. The first time you showed a spark of who you were and got told you were too much, or too sensitive, or just wrong. Maybe it happened so often you stopped trying altogether. You shut down. You adapted. You learned to survive. See, the world says it loves individuality, but what it really rewards is sameness. Fitting in, playing the part. So when you show up with your edges, your different way of thinking, your deep feelings, your loud dreams, you get pushed to the side. Labeled, ignored, and that's what makes it hurt so much. Because the thing that makes you feel isolated is the same thing that makes you you. But here's the twist most people miss, that pain. That ache of not being understood. It's not a sign that you're broken. It's actually proof that something inside you is still alive, that your soul hasn't given up on being known. That there's still a voice inside you saying, I want to be heard. So what do? We adapt. We learn the rules. We say the right things. Wear the right mask, try to blend in. It's human. It's survival. But that ache, it doesn't go away. Sometimes it whispers to you in the quiet. Sometimes it screams, especially when you finally tell the truth, and all you get back is a blank stare. That's the moment you start to wonder, should I just be what they want? Should I let go of my weirdness, my hopes, my quirks, just to belong? But deep down, something in you always says no. Something in you still fights to be real. There's this quote, and those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music. That's it, isn't it? You're dancing to your own song, even if no one else can hear it. Most people spend their lives chasing belonging. They think if they hide their real selves, mask their pain, mute their joy, they'll finally be loved. But it doesn't work. Because the truth is, you can be surrounded by people and still feel like a ghost. You can try your whole life to be understood and still feel like a stranger in your own story. Here's the thing. No one tells you. The pain of being misunderstood isn't really about them. It's about what happens to you when you stop showing up honestly. It's about the slow erosion of your voice. The tiny moments when you don't speak up. When you downplay what lights you up. When you laugh at things that hurt. Every time you pretend to be something you're not, that ache grows. But here's the flip side. Maybe the one no one ever explained to you. That ache is also a compass. It's the part of you that refuses to fully disappear. It's the whisper that says, hey, your truth still matters, even if no one's listening. One of the most powerful things Nietzsche ever wrote was that real freedom doesn't come from being accepted. It comes from accepting yourself. Think about that. The world's approval? It's shaky. You can have it today and lose it tomorrow with one unpopular thought. But the peace you get from standing in your own truth, that's unshakable. He didn't see being misunderstood as a curse. He saw it as the beginning of something bigger, a kind of transformation. So, if you're feeling that ache right now, if you've carried it for years, it means you're still searching for something real. And that search? That's what makes you different. Here's a hard truth. Most of us have to learn the long way. You're not here to be understood by everyone, and you never will be. That's not a failure. That's just the truth. What matters is what you do with that ache. You can let it shrink you. You can start molding yourself into something more acceptable, more comfortable for the people around you. Or you can let it wake you up. You can let it push you toward the person you were meant to be all along. Every moment you felt alone or out of place, that was never the end of the story. It was always a signal, a little flag saying, hey, there's more to you than this. And when you listen to that, everything starts to change. You start asking the real questions. Who am I when nobody's watching? What do I want, really? Not just what looks good on paper. What kind of life would actually feel like mine? You might never get the world's approval. You might always be a little too much for some people. But the second you stop needing to be understood is the moment you actually are by the people who truly matter. And maybe most importantly, by yourself. Because here's the wild part. That ache you've been carrying, that feeling of being unseen, that's not weakness. It's power. It's the root of art, of connection, of love. It's the reason some people create music that makes others cry, or write words that change lives, or show up with so much honesty that it inspires others to do the same. Nietzsche's own life is proof. He was ignored, mocked, misunderstood by almost everyone around him. But he didn't stop. He kept writing, kept thinking, kept being himself for the few who might understand someday. And eventually, the world caught up. He turned his isolation into insight, his loneliness into clarity. And because he refused to betray his own truth, he became immortal in the only way that matters. You can do the same, in your own way. Maybe not with books or philosophy, but with your life. The ache you feel now? It's the beginning of that path. Not everyone's gonna get you. That's just the reality. And yeah, it hurts, sometimes deeply. But that ache, that deep loneliness from being misunderstood, isn't the enemy. It's the start of something honest, something that could change your life. Because when you stop chasing approval and start listening to yourself, really listening, everything shifts. The question stops being, how can I make them see me? And becomes, how can I see myself clearly, even when no one else does? And that's when the healing begins. A lot of us spend years hiding, afraid to take up space, afraid to speak the truth, afraid of being called dramatic, emotional, difficult, weird. We try to play nice, smile when we want to scream, and say, it's fine, when we're anything but fine. Why? Because somewhere along the line, we learned that being real equals being rejected. But being fake, being palatable, that's its own kind of slow death. You end up losing your voice. You forget what matters to you. You become a stranger to yourself, all for the sake of fitting in with people who probably weren't really listening in the first place. And look, it's tempting to envy the ones who glide through life without friction. The ones who seem to fit into every room, every group, every expectation. But there's a cost to that too. Sometimes they lose their spark, their edge, their soul. That's not what you're here for. See, if you've ever been the one who couldn't quite conform, the one who asked too many questions, felt too deeply, or loved too loudly, then you're already on a different path. It might feel lonelier, but it's also more alive. You feel everything. That sensitivity you've been trying to tone down? That's not weakness. It's a kind of superpower. You notice what others miss. You love harder. You see meaning in places most people ignore. And that ability, it's rare. Nietzsche believed the world needs people like that, outsiders, misfits, the ones who refuse to just go along, because they're the ones who imagine a better world, a different world, a more human world. If you've ever spoken up when it was easier to stay silent, or held on to your values when it would have been easier to let them go, then you're already doing what most people are too scared to do. You're choosing to be real, even when it's hard. And sure, sometimes that means being alone. Sometimes it means walking away from people who only loved the version of you that played small. But in doing that, you make space for something better. You stop trying to make everyone understand you, and you start trying to understand yourself. It's terrifying at first. You'll doubt yourself. You'll wonder if it's worth it. But slowly, day by day, you'll start to recognize yourself again. Not just in a mirror, but in your choices. Your voice, your boundaries, your art. You'll feel proud of the person you're becoming, not because they're perfect, but because they're honest. You'll realize that the real failure isn't being misunderstood. The real failure is abandoning yourself to be accepted by people who never really saw you. Nietzsche said it best. Become who you are. Not once. Every day. It's not a light switch. It's a decision you make again and again. Today, I'll be me, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's messy, even if no one claps. Each time you do that, the ache gets a little softer, and your voice, it gets stronger. It's a process. Becoming yourself in a world that keeps trying to shape you into someone else. Some days, it feels like progress. Other days, it feels like you're starting all over again. But each time you show up as you, even just a little bit, you're building something real. You're teaching yourself to trust your own voice. And that kind of trust, it doesn't come easy. It's not something you inherit or unlock overnight. It's built the hard way, moment by moment, choice by choice. Every time you share an idea and it gets dismissed and you speak again anyway, that's trust. Every time you tell someone how you feel and they don't get it, but you don't backpedal, that's trust. Every time you show up fully and resist the urge to shrink, that's trust. It's tempting to shut down, to decide it's safer to stay quiet, and honestly, no one would blame you. We've all been there. But if you do that, if you choose safety over truth, you end up betraying the one person who actually needs your honesty the most, you. Nietzsche once said that most people would rather be accepted for who they're not than rejected for who they are. Think about that. How many times have you chosen peace over truth? Acceptance over authenticity? But there's something different about people who don't fold. The ones who stand in their truth, even if their voice shakes. They change things. Not because they're louder or stronger, but because they're real. And realness resonates. It's not about shouting from rooftops or convincing the world. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is just exist. Fully, quietly, without needing permission. And when you do that, when you show up with all your edges and honesty, you start attracting people who actually see you. People who aren't scared of your depth or your weirdness or your feelings. The ones who don't just tolerate you, but celebrate you. Those people, they're rare, but they're out there. And when you find them, there's no performance, no pretending, just a deep, immediate, you too. Nietzsche called these connections elective affinities, the kind of bond that isn't based on convenience or tradition, but on truth. And when those people enter your life, everything changes. Because suddenly, you're not carrying your story alone. Someone else sees it. Someone else gets it. Now, let's be honest, it won't happen every season of your life. Some chapters are just you and your shadow, walking through the dark. But even then, you're not lost. You're on your way to something real. Being misunderstood doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're alive, and accepting yourself while being misunderstood. That's where you become unstoppable. You don't need a stadium full of applause. You just need the quiet confidence that your story is valid, even if no one claps at all. There will always be people who don't get you. Always. There will be moments where you speak from your soul and get silence in return. Or worse, laughter, dismissal, rejection. But hear this. Their reaction is not your identity. Their confusion is not your truth. The revolution happens the moment you decide, I'm no longer waiting for your approval to be myself. That's where your real life begins. When you stop chasing approval and start living in alignment with who you really are, something shifts. That pain of being misunderstood. It's still there, but it stops controlling you. It fades into the background, replaced by something deeper, peace. Not the fake peace that comes from fitting in, The real peace that comes from not betraying yourself. And the truth is, your life starts to speak for itself. You don't have to shout, or convince, or explain everything anymore. The way you live, what you say no to, what you stand up for, the art you create, the people you choose to love, that becomes your message. And the people who are meant to hear it, they will. Maybe not all at once, maybe not in droves, but in time, the right ones always find you. Most people spend their whole lives just trying to be understood. But a rare few, they turn that longing into something more. They use it to become. You already know which one you are. That's why you're still listening. The only question left is, are you willing to answer that call? Or will you let the ache of being misunderstood convince you to go quiet? Because what you choose next doesn't just affect today. It echoes through every relationship you'll have, every risk you'll take, every time you look in the mirror and ask, did I show up as me today? The pain was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to deliver you into a life that finally feels like yours. You might spend years searching for the right words, hoping for that moment when someone just looks at you and says, I get it. But the truth, that moment might never come the way you imagine. The world's noisy. People are busy, caught in their own fears, their own masks. So eventually, you reach a crossroads. Keep fighting to be understood by everyone, or start being unapologetically yourself, even if that means walking alone for a while. Even the greatest thinkers, the artists, the healers, they felt the same ache, Nietzsche included. His words were ignored for years. He wasn't celebrated until long after he was gone. But he still wrote, still created, still dared to speak truths the world wasn't ready to hear. Why? Because he knew it mattered. There's a hidden gift in this ache. It pushes you toward radical self-acceptance. It forces you to say, if no one else gets it, I do. And that is where freedom lives. Being misunderstood will still sting. There will be nights when you lie awake, doubting yourself. Days where the loneliness feels like a weight on your chest. But inside all that, a quiet strength is building. A kind of resilience that doesn't rely on outside applause. Every time you speak your truth, even when your voice shakes, you get stronger. You feel lighter. You stop carrying the weight of who the world wanted you to be. And slowly you realize that ache, it wasn't the enemy. It was the invitation, the opening, the doorway into becoming something real. Because the thing you're most afraid of, the silence, the stares, the rejection, might just be the thing that leads you home. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to understand yourself, to become the person you've always wished someone else would see. And when you do, you become proof that the ache of being misunderstood isn't a curse. It's the beginning of a life only you could live. So if this spoke to something real in you, share it. Share your story in the comments. Someone else might need to see it. And if you want to keep growing with people who feel this too, hit that subscribe button. Because even if the world never fully understands you, you're not alone here. And you never will be.